All right, should get everything. And we should be live. It should come up any second now. There we go.
Alright, so we're going to get this cast going now. We are watching Heimdall's stream of the Steel Jaguar vs. Lords match in the RHoD League. We have two casters with us today, myself, Sir Trent Howell from Blackstone Knights, and I'll let my co-caster introduce himself.
Captain Terrific, Light Mech Pilot for SWK. This is week 9 of Run Hot or Die. This will be the first meeting of the Lords versus SJR. It's a highly anticipated matchup. Lords has been previously undefeated in Run Hot or Die. This is their only league they're currently in, and they have tallied up 2 wins against SWK, and I think 1 against SIG and another against QQ. SJR needs no introductions. They are currently the top MWO competitive team, and they play a series of leagues and tournaments.
SJR is also undefeated. They came off a win against Clan Ghost Bear. I believe neither team's really lost a whole lot of drops within their matches either. I have to check the Reddit stream to get the exact ones with those figures. But both teams are undefeated. I believe they may be the only teams left in the league that are undefeated. So this is one of the lineups of the 2 heavyweights in this league. Run Hot or Die's had some issues among teams dropping out throughout its existence. It's been reorganized twice from its 3 groups now into one single mega group where each team will play each other, and some teams have seen each other twice, but this is the first meetup between the Jags and Lords.
I can't imagine we're going to see anything different than what we've seen in previous matchups, besides maybe a smaller mech here or there to gain some tonnage for maybe a heavier mech. Our first drop will be the 540, so that's definitely a much lighter drop, and we're going to see a lot of Jenners, assuming Embers, Shadowhawks. Somebody might try to sneak a heavier mech in, but I think it's highly doubtful.
Yeah, our first tonnage is going to be 540 tons, which is a very, very light deck. Usually results in a brawl. In fact, almost always results in a brawl. Usually you see some sort of combination of 4 Jenners and 8 Shocks. That's usually the standard. The Jenners running 5 or 6 medium lasers, and the Shocks running their AC-20 and 2 medium lasers. However, we have seen situations where teams will try to use streaks on the light drops, and it's very effective against teams that are not prepared for it and aren't packing AMS. And I know the Jags lately have been using streak boats in their light tonnages against teams. We saw that last night when Blackstone played Jags in the last match of MRBC. And then lighter tonnages we've run into with the Lords, we've typically seen them run more AC-20, medium laser, the typical shock config.
Yeah, I agree. The last SWK SJR matchup in the lighter tonnages has always been heavy Jenner Ds. They might sneak a Ember or 2 in there as well to try to get those last minute kills. But it's going to be dominantly, most likely, Jenner Ds with the Embers. Also, word of note, they will not be using strikes tonight, so it will be skirmish. So there's going to be, I would assuming in the heavier tonnages, it's most likely going to result in a lot of sniping and jockeying for position, trying to get that quick kill and to stand pat with superior positioning.
Yeah, the no strikes on skirmish is going to be interesting. Both teams did agree not to use the strikes, although I did believe the Jags chose skirmish mode. Let me check that real quick. Yeah, Lords chose skirmish mode, but both teams did agree to use no strikes. Usually on skirmish mode, because there are no caps and because there are no turrets, obviously possible to try to cap your opponent out. So you see a lot of these skirmish matches turn into sniper fests. I know uh, Blackstone in particular likes to use the 2PPC Cicada, that we like to call the BS Cicada for those, and we also like to use strikes to make sure that teams are not going to pick a good defensive position. So what we could see here is teams picking a good sniper spot and staying there, especially on the larger maps, without strikes to really dislodge an enemy and force them to move. We could see a lot of maneuvers and counter maneuvers, or we could see just a lot of camping, teams picking a good spot and then waiting the clock down to the last couple of seconds before making an aggressive push to try to pick off a kill.
Yeah, I agree. There's gonna be positions in some of these maps where if one team gets to it before the other, they have a much superior position and can really just run out of game. Yeah, like Crimson Strait on the top of the highway there, just an ultimate defensive position, and you basically are going to go in there one at a time if you try to rush them.
I think Alpine's going to be a very interesting map, especially on the heavier tonnage, where you're going to see a lot of fracks, a lot of Highlanders, and really that map's about who can control the I-9 hill first. It's very difficult to assault that position, so it's going to be interesting to see if we get that map on a sniper deck, which team is going to make the push for it, or rather which team spawns close enough to get it.
Yeah, that was actually the one map that we SWK fought against the Lords in our matchup on our third one, and we basically took it down to the end because we weren't going to assault that hill. It's suicide basically. If you don't have the speed of a speedy deck to get to that hill to try to push them off of it, it's just too much of a disadvantage right away in the beginning of a game.
So if we had to make predictions, terrific, who's going to win this matchup?
Ooh, um, it's hard to tell because this is the first matchup between both of them. SWK has played both this season, and while we've only played SJR and Merrick, the decks that they use aren't really too different. We have played Lords twice, and hey, there's some good players on that team. There's no doubt in my mind they have earned their wins up to this point. So there's nothing, half glass half full on any of those wins. So they definitely, took it to us personally. I'm gonna say, oh, I can't give you a say. Let me see the first two drops and just see how things are going because I can't say it. Part of me says the Lords because to SJR they're unknown, but up until this point, SJR's got a chance to see them play against people. They got a chance to see them play against SWK, and while we haven't played well as of late, we're still one of the better teams. So you get a chance to see decks, you get a chance to see tendencies and things like that. When it comes to SJR, they throw in a curveball every so often on some of the maps that they do things. Last match with SWK, they did something different than they usually do in a lighter tonnage on Force Frozen City, and they went below the ship, and we were actually expecting them to come right over the hill. It turned out well for us, but they'll change up their dynamics and what they do per each map. So if Lords are considering or hoping they do something specific, I would imagine that Magician's gonna call a curveball.
Yeah, either way, I mean, this is going to come down to a 3-2 match. I really expect a 3-2 battle here. I think we'd be disappointed to see a sweep, and 3-1 I think would be... I would not see a 3-1 being outside the scope of possibility, but I'd really like to see all 5 battles. I know the Jags probably have the advantage that they've been playing together longer. They mesh. They've had the time to mesh as a team, and they've had that consistency in their pilot base. I think they've called out every single Jag pilot they have for this fight. I think even their EU team is here. So they really have a selection of the real cream of their crop from both teams. I know the Lords are kind of like a Spirit of Scotland collection of really the just best players from a multitude of different teams. And while that can be very effective, if the meshing isn't there, I'm not sure if the teams they're really going to be able to perform as well as the Jags in terms of meshing as a team. So I might have to give it to the Jags as a 3-2, but this could go either way. So I don't want to hold fast to that, but that would be my guess. Understand we are searching for a drop now. Magicians indicate we have a hit on 540.
Okay, so we should have
On
video
Manifold.
live in about 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think we're on a 5-minute delay. We have not
That's
checked the
pretty
time
standard,
though.
so I wouldn't imagine they changed it for this one. To go back to your point on the newer play,
User
SJR does
entered
have
your
newer players,
channel.
so that's something that everybody should be aware of. They have newer players that they have picked up recently, and they do attempt to play. Now, whether or
User
not they play in this
disconnected from
matchup,
your
it's
channel.
it's hard to know for sure. I do know that the Lords are a collection of players from various units. In fact, some of the units that have dropped out of RHoD recently, they do have a few players on the Lords roster up until this point. Now, when you do this, you do gain the cream of the crop, so to speak, of players, but then there's also an issue when it comes down to cohesiveness, like Trent was alluding to. The only problem is that sometimes if things aren't going well or positioning becomes an issue, because you're just not used to playing full time with those players. You know,
Yeah, and both teams take that into account when they're drop commanding too. The Jags, when they're, I've watched their streams. I'm familiar with the way Magician and their other DCs work. Is they're very on the ball. They're keeping an eye on people. If somebody's out of position, they get shouted at and move back correctly. So there's a lot more. I don't want to say micromanaging the part of the Jags, but there's a lot more DC involvement in their drops. The Lords have a much different approach when they're with their drop commanders. When they're looking, Lords, they're pretty much independent on the field. There is direction, obviously, especially with the lighter pilots, but mostly they rely on the pilot's individual skill to carry those drops. So there's a little bit less cohesion, and they rely on a different approach in terms of the way they run their battles in the field. And that would be very interesting to see play out.
yeah, it'd be interesting to see if it really turns into if is that the reason why a particular matchup or a particular drop's going to go one way or the other is because it was more skill related with no direction needed, or was it because there was skill needed, or there was direction needed the whole time along with some skill?
Yeah, and I think both teams would be fairly close skill-wise.
Yeah, I
Obviously, they're going to
don't.
have an easy time syncing.
Yeah, you might have one or two. You're looking at A plus snipers, A plus light pilots, things like that. So it's just like individual skills against an individual person. You know, I would have to give the light advantage to SJR overall for a light lancing total. As far as it goes down to assaults and snipers, I'm gonna give the edge to the Lords.
Yeah, I'd agree with that assessment. The Jags do have very good light players, so it can be possible to catch them out of position from time to time. The Lords, I think, are typically known to be more heavy in assault pilots, so I think they'll be a lot more effective in the heavier decks. They're not afraid to brawl, though. I know we've run into them in the 12-man queue a few times where they've been running very light brawl or heavy decks, probably in preparation here. And they seemed a little bit uneasy about their approach in the lighter decks. It seemed like they made a few mistakes. The Jags, however, are veterans in those light decks. So I think in the light decks we'll definitely see a Jag edge. In the heavier ones, maybe see a bit of a Lord edge. Although these are pretty. I mean, there's really two light decks, and you could say a heavy deck, and maybe two kind of medium decks. So I think you could really swing either way there.
Yeah, well, the first one's 540, definitely light. The second one is 3144. That's also another light deck, really. So those two right there, I mean, you'd have to say it's possible that the SGR could wind up with a 2-0 lead right away.
Yeah, I think a 2-0 lead by the Jags could be devastating. The Jags have been known for 3-0ing opponents. The Lords have too. But there's that issue of momentum. If one team does go up 2-0 early, it's really hard to come back from those 2-0 wins. Teams have done it. Swords have done it to Blackstone, and Blackstone's done it to Swords. I'm sure a lot of other teams have seen similar situations. So no game is over after two matches, but the power of momentum really just can't be argued with too much.
Yeah, I mean, Steeljack's probably seen it over the course of their whole competitive careers, probably situations where they've been down 0-2 and then come back to at least push a game 5. Now, Lords, on the other hand, obviously a new overall group in cohesion, but they do have a lot of players that have played for many other groups, their competitive leagues over the course of the MW history. So it's hard to say how each individual might take it if they're down 0-2 and it's just like will they step it up or will they kind of regress and just be defeated?
Yeah, that actually brings up a good point too. The Lords do have a lot of pilots from a lot of different teams, have a lot of different backgrounds in their approaches to the game.
Oh, and we're going live here.
Looks like we got a live hit.
Yes, we do. So Lords are dropping. I see 2 Embers, 3 Jenner Fs, and a Jenner D. 4P and 5
Remember,
Shadowhawks.
Shadowhawks, they're gonna try to lag you with their lights, so be aware.
Looks like my stream's about 10 seconds or so behind yours.
Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online.
Yes, this is an interesting
legs
deck
on everything
from the
except
Lords
for
here. They went light heavy,
Just
and I do
get
have a
to
lot of
the
those
center
shocks. I'm gonna guess those
and
are
take the
20s,
right side of it.
2
We're gonna
medium
rotate
lasers,
that side if
4P.
needed.
Imagine would be a whole lot of medium lasers. They also have those Embers out on the field, which I know had a
They're gonna
Euro
come out at
likes to
D6,
pilot.
C6. Is it 8 or 4?
There they are.
Recollect, guys. Don't form a line.
Yeah,
You get
curious
collected.
if I wonder if
Target acquired.
they're gonna try to push them early.
Yeah,
New
usually these
target
fights,
acquired.
you just have the 2 teams will form up,
Jenner
they'll
D.
low-key each other, and then they'll just go straight in. It really becomes
New
a
target
big furball.
acquired.
And the way you win those
Oh,
light
there it
West, you're a
goes.
bit far
is
up,
as
bit
much
far up,
fire
get
as you
back.
can on the
They're
end.
pushing now.
Are we engaging?
That was a
or what?
quick half
Pushing right-
push there by
pushing right
the
into
lights of SJR,
towards the
and they
entrance to
pulled
the
right
bottom
back
or what?
again.
They'll
We-
push to us.
Honestly, I
We
don't
gotta
know
take
if that
that
was
top
really
when they push.
an
Take
engagement
the
that
top
they should
ramp.
have
Go
done.
top.
This the light mech seem to still
I
be
just
skirmishing with
froze
each other.
up here.
Neither team's really committed.
And Heim's stream went down.
And we've lost the stream, I think.
Okay. Well, that was unfortunate. Hopefully either he realizes it or we're going to be without the results of this match. I'm going to check real quick if we have another stream available, and I'll try to pull it.
Chap says the Steeljack stream is up. Alright, so we're going to, we're just watching the Steeljack stream here. We'll see how we can do from here. Looks like the Jags are up 4-1 right now. Siri just knocked out Salith.
Oh, hunchback, right torso. Alright, he's neutered.
It's
Mostly.
5-2 Jag lead right now.
New target.
He's Mike
Yep.
now.
Yeah, my Ember also
Trevelyan knocks out Pie Maker.
Keep moving, guys. Lights. Keep jumping around, moving. Don't stand
Looks
still.
like the Jags
Lima
unlocked
Light.
a lot of their light force to the left
Light.
right now.
Yeah, looks like a lot of
another one at 5-3.
Mike is legs.
Shots going.
Mike is down.
Yeah, this one
One of
can
the
turn
Embers-
Delta
really
Ember,
quick
leg,
because these-
right
a lot
leg's
of these
open.
guys have got a lot
Mike-
of
Mike
damage,
Embers,
and you're just going to start seeing
Delta
people
down.
Both
fall.
legs
on Mike Ember.
Mike
Even
Ember,
Shadowhawk
guys.
is
Those
still
Embers,
alive.
if they're
Yeah,
still alive, are going to
It's
be able
okay,
to
get
take
down
out a
their
lot of
lights
guys
now.
quick.
Get down their lights.
These light matches
They
can
have a
really
hunch
snowball on you
He's
very
legs.
quickly. It's a
Face
7-3 Jag
Mike
lead
down.
right now,
Lima-
but
Lima
looks
right.
like Jags have quite a
No,
number
it's
of
wrong
wounded
person.
mechs.
Juliet Jenner, he's fresh.
Just get on
Yeah, with
Juliet
an
Jenner,
8-3
guys. Light
lead,
down
it's
Juliet
difficult to
Jenner.
come back from.
Shadowhawk in the back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
up
just
top.
ignore him for now. He's
Looks like
he's
Heim
poorly
knocks out
when
like
Mike
we're
wants to get on
watching
him, go
Jaeger.
for it.
New target.
Yeah, it looks like
I'm on
it.
Kilo. I'm on Kilo.
New target.
And boom,
Keep
two
finishing the
more
lights, guys.
Come on,
SJR
guys.
mechs go down. They're getting
Straight those
close.
lights.
Focus the lights.
Right
Right leg.
Lords are coming back a little bit. It's
Oh, we
8-6.
still got Falcon
Keep moving,
Jones.
guys.
And I think it's
Yeah, but
mostly
we're
light mechs still
dropping
up.
down.
Though it looks
Oh, it
like
looked
that's
like
one
SJR
dead.
had a Shadowhawk, but he may have just went down.
Oh, it's getting
And
close
it's
now.
8-8.
8
8-8.
legs.
The Lords have
Hold
tied
your
up.
shots. Don't
Up
overthink
the
it.
Jenner
Down.
down now, so
Lord-
there's 9-8.
Use your streaks.
New target acquired.
Juliet.
Oh, Heim Delight, very fresh.
You can kite away from the mediums.
The Jags are going to be really working on finding damaged targets and killing them as quickly
like-
as they can right now. They want to
Oh,
start with the
Siri's
most
gonna
damage
go
they
down
can
here.
get that firepower out of there.
Fuel.
Siri's legged. It's going to be tied at 9-9 in a moment. If they don't kill Heim very quickly. Siri's
Oh,
down.
wow, and
Acquired.
legal
Tied up at
depth
9.
here is completely fresh.
New target acquired.
Fabricio is also pretty
Fabrosian's in
fresh.
pretty good shape too, yeah.
One hit on
Oh,
Kilo.
and he just took
One
a
hit
really
on
bad
Heim
out
Kilo.
with his
Trouble.
chest. They've got to get these
Kilo's
mediums
down.
down.
Get on the Shadowhawk.
Right torso, Shadowhawk.
Kill
You
the
might be
shadow.
out of ammo.
His legs
Shadowhawk
or his
might
back
be out of
and his
ammo.
shoulders.
Inside
Oh,
minimum
he's
range.
really
Oh,
really
there's
hurt.
a Lord Shock
The
still
Hunchback
up.
still has lasers.
Ah,
So I don't know why he's got a
In
pin
minimum
there.
range,
He's
man.
an odd choice
Target acquired.
for a brawl like this. They really have to stay on that shock, though. That shock's got to die. Jags have only got one guy left up. That 20 is going to be dangerous against a light.